You know what this is.
We'll play it by ear. The first play it by ear we feel like should be pretty ceremonious, and I think a good way to do that before we head into 2019 is by talking about the album of the decade. This was something that you saw an article on, what, like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think it was like a complex article, one of them bullshit-ass media outlets.
And I think they named My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy the album of the decade, right?
Yep, which is
you don't agree with
true.
it?
I don't agree with it because I felt like that sound was actually kind of still stemming from the last decade.
I agree with that.
Like with Kanye's like growth and everything, and just like how hip hop in general was going or whatnot. But like, it stemmed from the last decade. Like, you know, going into this decade, I believe that there's a couple of like albums that came out between like 11 and 13 that really like kind of set what happened for the rest of the decade, you know. 'Cause I really feel like we didn't get into like the shits of this decade until about like 12, 13.
All right, let's dissect that a couple pieces. So the first part, the sound being part of pretty much the previous decade. I agree, but I can't really put that into words.
I can't either. I really can't even put it in the sound, to tell you the truth. Like, I know that the 808s coming harder, like kind of, that was,
Auto-tune.
It started with like Rick Ross. Well, I don't mean like 808s and heartbreaks. I
right.
mean like
just in music generally
music,
at that
yeah.
time,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, everybody shit had to hit hard. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's where we are now. Like, where pop music is like that, you know?
Well, and I feel like the auto-tune thing
Ariana
really
Grande should be
started
banging.
taking off. You know, you had, not only was there quite a bit in 808s and Heartbreak, but you also have artists like T-Pain that were like at their peak at that time. You had artists like Lil Wayne that were kind of at the, you know, the end of their apex.
They were kind of like,
and they were
passing the
tying in
torch.
with all of that too, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you got to give it up to those two dudes because even like, you know, the latter end of the decade, T-Pain and Lil Wayne took off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they are heavily influencers of the kids that came out this past decade. You know what I mean? In the tens and shit.
Well, and maybe that's why they felt that My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy was the best, because it did influence, you know, so much after the fact. I mean, I don't want to say it wasn't influential, but I feel like many more of Kanye's previous albums were more influential than that one. So for that one to get a ton of credit for being the magnum opus, I don't know if I agree with it.
Yeah, I don't agree with it at all. Like you said, the shit that he came before that is probably more influential to even this decade. I would say hip hop as a whole, like, because Late Registration, College Dropout. I mean, you already know how, you know, that shit gets now. But I would say that his shit, you know, before that, it was a little bit more influential, just like as on hip hop as a whole, and even more for the decade too. You know what I'm saying? Even though they came out, you know, 5 years before the decade even started. You know?
Yeah, well, we've talked before about 808s and Heartbreak and how that influenced Drake and that sound so much, you know. And then you had even something that was so experimental like Yeezus influenced very much like that Travis Scott sound.
Well,
I mean, he produced a lot of tracks.
Travis was that sound, the Yeezus sound. It was just, like, it goes back to the shit that we were saying about like how that nigga like catches a wave, you know what I mean, and like jumps on it.
Yeah.
The thing is, he like his wave came before like Travis really hit, like with Yeezus. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, I gotta drop something right now. You know what I mean? Before like this really becomes like the, you know, like, oh, what music is, and like it kind of did become that with Travis and shit.
He is kind of like prone to
The
rush
nigga's mad
something, right?
influential. Don't get me wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but you're right about like the timing, because I feel like the whole Pablo release was interesting because it released
2014, 20.
I think it was 16 even.
16?
Or early 16 though.
What? Shit,
Or maybe it was, I'm pretty sure it was like early 16, but you know, it was like he rushed to get it out and launch Tidal and all of that, and then it was like, oh well, it's actually not finished yet, and he actually went back and tweaked a lot of songs. I remember downloading the album, I want to say very early on when it came out. There's a part in 30 Hours where right after that first chorus, the original version keeps the beat going through that. The tweaked version drops the beat and picks it. So like it in a way, people are like, okay, is this the new wave that an album is an ongoing living piece of art instead of being just something that you drop one time and then it continues to go.
Right.
You know, so like that's but the funny thing is, who knows, maybe it was just a rush to get something done, to your point, whereas now it's like, in retrospect, was that intentional? Was it just a rush? What's the deal there? I don't know.
Well, Kanye is like a real producer, you know what I'm saying? So him going back, like, I mean, sometimes those, like, all right, you know when people say mix and mastered?
Yeah.
Like, that shit wasn't the pirated version that you got. It wasn't mix and mastered. You know what I'm saying? Like, because when they go in and they, like, you know, they mix the joint or whatever, like, you'll get those differences.
Snippets,
and,
yeah.
like,
but this was different, though. This is when he released it, and then
when they went back.
A couple days later, he
it's pretty
said...
much like the same thing. Like,
similar, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, nah, that's not how I wanted it, right? Like, maybe it could have been something where they, like, uploaded the wrong track. You know what I'm saying? Like, whoever they gave, like, the stems and shit to, like, you know, uploaded, like, the wrong part. Or, like, he, like, maybe just heard it and just wanted to go back and tweak it. And, you know what I'm saying? And re-upload that shit.
I actually, you know, as frustrating as it was hearing different versions of it, I actually kind of liked that.
I heard that on the Gucci Mane song before. On, now, what's the one with him and 2 Chainz and the Mud Music and Waka Flocka?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like,
there's different versions of that, too.
Versions,
yeah, I've heard different ones, too.
Like...
See, that makes sense if it's like, you know, like an underground song, because I don't know, that was from a mixtape, right? I mean, that was on like
mixtape era.
Yeah, so a little bit different.
I think they did put it on an album, which the shit is different. You know
that shit goes hard. But
take me back to El Paso.
I know, 2011. Sorry. Then the next part of that, you know, what was that sound from the previous year? You know, we're talking about that being kind of that auto tune, that revolutionary. What do you think then is more of the sound of this decade then?
I would say people getting like way more melodic than they were before with their raps. Like everybody is like doing it. It's not like, I feel like you gotta, with hip hop today, like you gotta like be in that lane to even kind of, I don't know, sit at the table now. Like with like the Baby and shit like that, it's like, you know, like straight like bars and like straight like rap and shit, but it's still like, I don't know, it's that hip, like I said, that those 808s, man, they took over. And it just like, if you got a good beat, like your shit's rocking, man. Like,
yeah.
And that's kind of like, it's kind of sad because a lot of people ain't like, I feel like the producers ain't getting enough credit from like the talent or whatever that's like really like put behind a song, like a hit song. But I don't know. I would say that the producers are really running the game. Like rappers, like there's no real like
Metro Boomin's like the glue of all these like hot artists right now. It's Metro Boomin really more than anything.
For sure.
They need him on the mixtape to make it like the mixtape of the summer.
So I would really say, man, like damn, like now that you brought up that point, man, like I would say Metro is probably like really like is that sound. You know what I mean? Like that sound.
That's the movement right now.
That's the move, and that's weird because like we never really had like a producer that really, you know what I'm saying? Like had that wave. It's like, oh, that sound. I mean, Kanye changed the sound every album. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. Like, and he was, you know, producer, but he was also the artist. You know, so it's like
because fuck y'all, man. Y'all ain't. I was rapping in 01 when I was doing Blueprint.
Imagine doing 2 beats a day for 3 summers.
Niggas ain't want to hear Kanye rap, bro. That's fucked up.
I know. They're just like, I'm good. I'm good.
Bro. Oh, like what he say on the last call? He's like, yo, we could just throw Cam on everything.
Yeah, it'll be, he'll lift the album up. He'll make the album. But you know, it's funny. Some people do that nowadays, though.
Yo, they do.
It's kind of necessary with some artists nowadays.
Man, hell yeah. Like, bro, the rap game is funny, bro. Like, especially now since it's so mainstream. Because, like, I mean, like, Post Malone shit really not rap. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's different. But like, what is it? Like, what would you consider it?
It's like folk music. It's like, bro, it's like Pearl Jam or some shit like that.
Yeah,
it's
you know, like, it's fun. It is. It actually really is.
It's like grunge music, but it just got like 808s behind it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Just like hard beats. Just like when what's the little nigga came out, little gay nigga, Lil Nas X.
Yeah.
With his like sound, like that's really a country song if you listen to it. You know what I mean? But like, just because of that going, boom, it's hip hop. You
Right.
know, like, and that's what kind of makes hip hop that pop sound. Now that's why hip hop is pop now. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
like you got like a song that a sound that derives from hip hop. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know who was like the first one to like really use the 808s, but I remember like Dre on like Dope Man and shit like that. You know, like those were like the strongest 808s you heard at the time. You know, and that was like in '88. It's like, okay, so you got something that derives from, you know, some shit 30 years ago. Now that shit's like mainstream, and all it is just a boom. It's just a drum, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's like you said, like so much of the melody now is
I
incorporated
think
that it
the
wasn't
melody is
before.
like mad important too, because like I don't know, these niggas gotta like sing now, like hearing like then today R.I.P. Juice WRLD. Like I remember
Yeah.
hearing that nigga shit for the first time. Like, yo, this shit goes hard right here.
Right.
Like, and it was like
So much melody incorporated.
it had the
in it.
sample that, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then it was just like 808s behind that shit, and like the dude was like, that was like some emo shit, like some fucking. I mean, shit. He was getting sued by like Yellow Card and like, you know what I mean, like all kind of,
Yeah.
because he had took like so many different elements, put it all together, and like boom, got a hit song. You know what I mean, like.
It's that same kind of sound, yeah.
And I think that's what, I don't know, that's the direction that hip hop is in right now. I would say, man, my album of the year.
Decade, yeah.
of the
Let's hear it.
decade,
So let's hear it. What's your album then of the decade?
Man, like it's kind of hard. You gonna think I'm bugging too or whatever, but like I think that this artist is probably of this decade, somebody that like actually like came out this decade, really hit mainstream and shit. Fucking like his influential as shit. You know what I'm saying? Nigga, his fans don't even like Drake. You know what I mean? Like, I think Tyler, bro. I think Wolf.
Yeah?
I think Wolf really is like
Your album of the decade.
my album of the decade. Other than, because I would say Days Before, but it's not an album. And I don't think
Yeah.
Astroworld really like, I mean, it kind of encompassed this whole decade. So, I mean, that's a close second. But I think that like Wolf, like really, I don't know. Like I still play that shit every
So-
after 7 years, bro. Like
This, and I won't spoil my favorite Tyler album because we'll do it. We're gonna have it. That's coming up.
that's a whole nother conversation. But
Right.
it's weird that that's actually
So
still my
what is it
favorite
about
album.
Wolf that you think was the one that like set him?
apart
Yeah,
from everybody else?
just because before that was Goblin. Goblin was one that I feel like kind of put him on everybody's radar a little bit more mainstream.
Right.
I feel like Wolf was like the album that dropped when he was already very mainstream. Kind of
Well,
like Astroworld for
I
Travis
kinda,
Scott.
All right, so it's kind of like all right, most artists they have a sophomore slump,
Yeah.
but the ones that last, that second
Yes.
album is always like the shit. Like Kanye with Late Registration, Eminem with Marshall Mathers LP, fucking, I mean, name me any fucking artist, you know what I'm saying? It's like a lasting longevity. What was Jay-Z's second album? What was it? It wasn't Hard Knock Life. It was
Not Reasonable Doubt was first.
Reasonable Doubt was first.
Second was The Life and Times, right?
Life and
Volume
Times,
1.
yeah. I mean, once you have that second album, that's 50 Cent with the Massacre.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, so here's the interesting thing. I feel like the first album, if your big success, gets you like on the map.
Mhm.
And then the second album, if you can really master it, then it sets you up for like, all right, you're potentially going to be the best in the game if you can master this third one. And I feel like a lot of people fold under the pressure of that third one. 50 himself.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
Curtis was just like, nah.
He lost.
Curtis wasn't it. And then from
he
there,
lost the whole hip hop war.
he completely fell off. Yeah.
Yeah.
He completely spiraled down after that. Like he put a couple more, I think, 3 more mainstream albums out.
Right.
I couldn't tell you a couple of the singles that you would know, you would know, but like the common person would know.
Well, it's funny that you like even brung that up about the third album, because I felt like, what was Tyler's third album? Cherry Bomb?
No, his third album was Wolf, I believe.
His third album was Wolf?
Yeah, because Cherry Bomb was after that. That was about 2015.
Well, what
Wolf
his
was
second album?
2013. Well, I guess.
Bastard was a mixtape.
Okay, so and then I guess that's where it gets kind of tricky too. Then, so if Bastard is a
Well,
mixtape, and then
yeah.
you've got, and I mean it is pretty much,
It is. I mean, it's the same thing with ASAP.
and the same thing with Tyler or with Travis with Days Before.
Right.
So I guess technically you want to look at it, then that means Wolf would be his second album.
Yeah.
So kind of like, I guess you can say Astroworld would be Travis's second album, but really it's more his third work that everybody knows.
Nah, because what was the shit with Upper Echelon and shit on there?
Al Pharaoh, but that was a mixtape.
That was a mixtape?
Was it not?
I don't know. I can't tell you.
Point I'm making is I'm kind of helping you, not
Right.
helping your cause,
Well,
but like
well,
I
what
get
I
where you're
wanted to
coming from
say-
with Wolf because I
what
feel
I
like at
wanted to
that
say was
point
with-
everybody was paying attention
Right.
to Tyler, so it had like every potential to go south, like it did for 50 with Curtis, or how it went pretty well with Kanye with Graduation. That's where like okay, people were paying attention, and then Wolf came out, and hey, like he's taken off since then and has his own niche audience, his own following, his own brand.
Right.
You know.
They don't even fuck with Drake.
Right,
You know what I'm
right.
saying?
And we talked about that in one of the previous episodes.
But I mean, well, I really didn't even fuck with Cherry Bomb. You know
It
what I'm
was
saying?
weird. I didn't really.
I didn't really fuck with Cherry Bomb, but I fuck with Flower Boy a little bit, like not even hard like I did with Wolf. But and then he came out with motherfucking Igor. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, oh shit, like bro, how is he not the like livest nigga of the decade? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah,
Well,
Drake got
especially-
albums, but like they really not all that great, man.
They're not albums in the sense that we're looking like where it's a story.
Right, yeah, it's just a bunch of crooning and crying and shit.
And I will say, like, the thing with Tyler's albums, they're like consecutive. They are, at least with the story,
Right.
it continues the narrative.
Yeah.
Even
And
like,
that's
you know,
what makes an album a real fucking album.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I mean, Kanye did that for a while with the first three albums. College Dropout,
Right.
Late Registration, Graduation. It's almost like a trilogy, you know?
Right.
But the narrative continued. And Tyler was doing that for a while, too, when he had Bastard, Goblin. It kind of evolved a little bit when he went to Wolf. Because in
Yeah.
the first two, he's talking about he's kind of like the loner kid and he's going to therapy. And then after Wolf, that's when he goes off to camp.
Yeah.
And then all these different personalities pop up. But they continue, like the story continues. Like Flower Boy continues into Igor. It's just a different
Right.
message all around.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what an album is supposed to do. To me, I don't know. We talked about it on this pod, or we talked about it on Don't At Me, or whatever. But I think that like albums are supposed to tell stories. Oh yeah, we did that on the teaser for this shit. Like how because we were talking about how Dre kind of actually set that forward with E Fifth for Zagging or whatever. But did you listen to that shit?
Not yet. I'm going to
Oh,
save
bro, you a
that.
sucker, man.
I'm going to save that one.
You
I'm
gotta
saving
listen-
that for the 10th episode.
I'm actually gonna give you a list of albums or whatever, starting so you can actually pick up on
This will be the
the
Put Me
story-
On
the storytelling
collection.
shit. Because I mean, obviously you know about like the storytelling aspect from like Good Kid, Mad City. Let's see, Live Love ASAP really did. I mean, not Live Love ASAP. Whatever the other one was, that nigga's first album, which really wasn't that great either. I would say he's like up in the top. ASAP Rocky is probably
A$AP?
like in the top 3 of most influential of this decade.
Yeah, I can see that. I won't really argue that one.
Yeah, like I mean, not even really with the music, but like kind of just like the aesthetic of
Yeah.
what like a rapper is supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's kind of like the modern Snoop in a way.
You know what? I actually compare him to like the modern Pac. Like if Pac would have like made it out of, if Pac would have lived through '96, he would have been what ASAP is right now. Like with the Versace and shit. Pac was like the first nigga wearing Versace, bro. Like Gianni Versace like gave him clothes. Like he like modeled for
I don't
him.
know. My person for who Pac would be, maybe not as hard as Pac, but is actually my answer if we want to get into my album of the year. Or
What's
my
your album?
of the
Good
decade.
Kid, Mad City?
Yeah, and I told you it'd be predictable.
I knew those.
I told you that, like, it's probably a lot of people would say
Yeah.
it seems like it might be an easy answer, but here's what I'll tell you about that album. That one,
It kind of set the standard for what this decade actually kind of.
yeah, it was
Yeah, it
pretty
did.
influential.
I will
Not
say
where you
that.
had people say, like, I'm going to copy this and make my own version, but it was kind of like, well, shit. Like, the other thing, too, is we talk about when Good Kid, Mad City first came out, I was worried because I was like, man, he set the bar so high for himself. I'm a fan. I'm worried that he's not going to be able to eclipse this. And I don't know that he has eclipsed it, but it's not like the albums since then have been letdowns at all. In fact, you know, some might argue that To Pimp a Butterfly is a better album. Some might argue that Damn is a better album. It's not really an album, but shit, Untitled Unmastered is, you know, a nice compilation. So, I mean, each narrative was different after Good Kid, Mad City. I guess you could say they kind of continued.
Right.
But they were all pretty standalone in their own way. But what I'll say about Good Kid, Mad City is that it just kind of brought rap back to poetry and kind of, you know, storytelling to a certain extent, but just, you know, using it as a way to either talk about societal issues. It's a way to kind of give people like an anthem, like, all right, this dude made it out of there. You know, it has quite a bit of, it's a coming of age story. Oh, yeah. So it talks about, like, you know, being young and naive. It's mad
relatable to, like, everybody. And that's like some shit that you always gotta have, you know what I mean? Like, with, with, you know, trying to be an artist and trying to actually like reach the people and shit.
You
like,
have to.
If you're not relatable to a lot of people, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's
small.
It's
following.
Relatable to like tons of. I mean, fucking all walks of life. You know what I'm saying? Like, fucking nigga, females, males, like whoever. Like that's just like a relatable ass album. And yeah, he had one with that. I would say, man, that's definitely in my top 5 of the decade. I would say
it was. You know, not only would I say that was a popular choice for most people, but for me especially. Right. You know, it was just an interesting
you really
time.
Felt that shit.
Well, it was an interesting time in my life. You know, just like a lot of transitions going on. I mean, it came out 2013, but I really didn't like listen and dive into it until 2014. And like really go into each track by track, listen to the whole story. Right. I think about 2013, I was jamming some of the singles, but right around 2014 was when I really got into like the actual narrative, the story, the entirety of it all. And I mean, you know, I'm always late to music. Yeah. But hearing about the hype of it, I was like, all right, we'll see. Once I listened to it, it lived up to it because to me, it brought some of those timeless, you know, great parts of that West Coast sound from before. Yeah. You know, like that G-Funk sound to a certain extent. But it also kind of introduced this new sound, like we're talking about, not quite Metro Boomin, but like its own, like, you know, ASAP-esque kind of sound to it, you know, because they had a lot of features with each other around that time, too. Right. So that's my answer. You know, there's so many songs on there that I can listen to on repeat. And I feel like this is another hallmark of a great album, is that my favorite song from that album, I feel like, has shifted several times. Like,
like it changed?
It's changed. And that'll maybe happen with, like, 1 or 2 tracks. Like, you might have, like, a popular single. You're like, man, you just play that shit on repeat. And then a couple months later, you get tired of it. You find a new favorite. That might happen 2 or 3 times. Good Kid, Mad City, that shit happened to me maybe 5 or 6 times. Where each time I'm like, I like this song.
Well, I would say that's true, and that rings true to like a good album and shit too. Because with Me Against the World with Pac, which you know that's like my favorite album, like period. Like my favorite song on there is like kind of changed. You know what I'm saying? Like throughout I mean, I remember when I was younger, it was like So Many Tears, and then it was like Young Niggas, and then like you know going on Outlaw.
Outlaw, that probably is my favorite one on there.
It is now, it is for sure.
Can you get away? That's another good one. That's just like, it's like a weird mood, you know. Album of the decade: Wolf, Good Kid, Mad City. Any honorable mentions?
I would say honorable mentions. Man, what have I been listening? Astro, obviously.
Yeah, I'd say that. That was a lot of also because of the mainstream acclaim it's got.
I would say KOD, J. Cole. I really didn't fuck with J. Cole before KOD, or whatever the fuck.
People love that album, though.
You know what is not going to make any of my lists? Any Drake album. I've never listened to an entire Drake album, bro.
I don't think I have either.
I've never, ever listened to an entire Drake album.
I cherry pick.
People gonna listen to this and be like, these guys don't know shit. They've never listened to Drake. Nah, y'all get out of here.
Get out of here. I feel you on the Tyler albums, though, for sure. I feel you on Tyler. I feel you on I think Kendrick would be more of like the Tupac of now, but I can understand the
Yeah.
ASAP one, you know. I mean, but I don't know. I mean, there's been a lot of good albums, but I think it would have to be the artists have to be within that Kanye, Kendrick.
In that space, yeah, for sure.
It has to be for me.
I mean, even I don't know, man, because lately the nigga kind of been falling off, man. Big Sean was up there, like
yeah, he was kind of like he had like a certain sound to it, but now he's gotten so pop sounding.
man, yeah.
It's
Big
just
Sean
like
fell
some
off.
of his songs are just completely unpalatable.
And I fucks with Big Sean too. Another nigga that I mean, this nigga been around for like almost 15. Well, shit, probably even longer than that. Currency.
He's always kind of been like that, like under the radar
Yeah.
type rapper though.
When
Like
your rapper's favorite rapper type nigga.
Yeah.
Like Devin the Dude, shit like that. Yeah.
exactly, like that one. Like, damn, who's this? This sounds smooth, you know. Get put on. I mean, there's gonna be plenty of albums that were just like
Throwing out there.
overplayed. You know, like no Migos album is gonna make like my critically acclaimed list.
No,
If you're talking about like
not either.
catchy pop shit, pop sounds, then yeah, maybe. But I mean, they're not telling any stories in the literal sense of an album.
Yeah, I'm going through my albums like right now. I'm telling you, like most of the ones that like are from like this year that like I really like just jammed or like R&B shit.
Yeah,
It's
and
weird.
it's kind of like you said, like the
that just
line
growth?
has kind of blurred over
Yeah.
the last decade too. Like that's something that we haven't talked about, but they got to be put on. So put me on. I'll put y'all on some music too.
Just hang out. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna bring me
Subscribe,
out more shit. Subscribe, follow.